This movie is so rad. Drunken Master II, also known as The Legend of the Drunken Master, stars Jackie Chan as the son of a doctor/martial arts master who was taught the art of drunken boxing. After mixing up his luggage during an altercation with a thief on a train, Jackie comes into possession of an ancient Chinese relic, and he soon discovers that a Hong Kong gang is selling Chinese relics to the British. It's up to Jackie Chan and the rest of the townspeople to stop the gangs and the British from robbing China's historical artifacts. Even though it's called Drunken Master II, it really is not a direct sequel to the first Drunken Master film, which came out in 1978. This feels kind of like Evil Dead 2, where instead of being a direct sequel to Evil Dead, it feels more like a reboot or a do-over. Drunken Master 2, in my opinion, is far superior to the first Drunken Master movie, and you don't need to see the first one in order to watch the sequel. Now, why did I like this movie so much? One primary advantage that this movie has over a lot of Jackie Chan's other Hong Kong movies is that Drunken Master 2 is genuinely funny. Oftentimes, the humor in Jackie's 80s and early 90s movies is pretty awkward and a little too goofy for me, where actors act more like cartoon characters than actual people, but I laughed in this one more than I have in any other Hong Kong Jackie Chan film. I have to distinguish between his Hong Kong films and his Hollywood films because those are two different animals. His Hollywood films like Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon are usually pretty funny but are lighter on the action, while his Hong Kong films often try to be funny but just aren't, but the action is just absolutely insane. Anita Mui, who plays Jackie Chan's stepmom, steals the show for me. She's hilarious, playing a fearless and somewhat manipulative woman who pulls out the fake tears to get her away, and she is just a natural comedian. Drunken Master 2 has some of the most insane fight choreography I have ever seen, which really isn't saying much because I'm not a martial arts film expert, but it's easily some of the best from the other Jackie Chan movies I've seen. It never got boring for me, which sometimes happens in his other films. Police Story, for example, has some brutally awesome kung fu, but anytime guys aren't being kicked through car windshields or hanging off the side of buses, it tends to drag. I was entertained throughout the entire runtime of Drunken Master 2, even when there was no fighting happening. Sometimes the action in other Jackie Chan films can get a little exhausting. Even though I love the movie Project A, by the time it's over, you're kind of ready for it to be over, but I felt no action fatigue in Drunken Master 2, even though there is a lot of action. The final boss fight between Jackie and Ken Lo, who is actually Jackie's bodyguard in real life, is just epic. The fight choreography is a vast improvement over the first Drunken Master. The choreography from the first one is a little too artificial for me. I saw it with my dad and he said, "It looks like they're dancing." And I agree, it doesn't look like a real fight, but more like an elaborate dance. In some of my reviews, I may say skip the movie and just watch the good scenes on YouTube. But no, I would say sit down and watch the whole movie. There isn't much I disliked about this one. I guess it's a little weird that Jackie is playing such a young character. He acts like he is a mischievous teenager who's always getting into trouble, even though he would have been about 40 years old when this movie came out. It's not too awkward because he has a naturally boyish face, but you can tell he's not as young as his character requires him to be. Also, for some reason, in the last 3 minutes of this movie, the sound goes completely dead. I have seen it twice, once on iTunes and once on Amazon Prime, and it happens in both versions, so I may never know what is said at the end of the film. This movie is rated R for absolutely no reason. I mean, I would watch this with my future 10-year-old children. Seriously, this has just as much violence as any other PG-13 Jackie Chan movie. It's just a lot of punching and kicking with the occasional bloody face being shown. I love this movie and I plan to get it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever the kids are using these days.